Hello, everybody. I'm Steve the Medium. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve the Medium. With me, I've got one fresh perspective and current pulse. And today's topic is not self esteem. Hold on a second. Today's topic is comparing ourselves to others. And you'll. There we are. Okay. Ex- Excuse us if we're a little loopy. It's been a while since we've all been together, so we've been catching up. So there's been a lot of humor behind the scenes. But we hope everyone who is watching is doing well, and welcome to another episode of Life Connections. Yeah, if she dies, this episode never airs because we don't want to be complicit.
Friend, give us the thumbs up, all that good stuff. And so on
Time out.
comparisons,
Time out. You have to go through that whole thing again. I didn't unmute the desktop audio. They just saw your mouth moving. There was no sound.
oh, okay.
I'm so not with it today.
That's all right. It happens.
We need to hire somebody else.
That's okay. My stream earlier this morning, I did the same thing. First 5 minutes, I was muted. It happens.
That's
So
true.
all over again. What you were saying, Kat, was you were saying if you had questions.
So what I was saying when you guys were wondering why my mouth was going and no words were coming out, I was actually talking. What I was saying is, if you have questions, if you have topics that you would like us to cover, please make notes in the comments. We would love to know what you guys would like to talk about. We're here to encourage and support you guys. So leave comments, give us a thumbs up. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs down, and feedback though, if you do that, because we can't change what we don't know. So give us some constructive feedback, tell a friend, and let's talk.
Yes, we are here hopefully every Saturday. We try. We really do.
We try. I'm the worst though, because I forget all the time.
It's all right.
Well,
Life
we've all had
happens.
major things going on in our lives over the past few weeks, so I mean, hopefully the audience forgives us. If not, we'll find another one. I'm kidding.
Right. Well, and I think people are learning and over the last year that things happen, life happens, and you just never know. So yes, we do our best, and that's all we can ask anybody to do is do your best, and that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It all came together today, though.
It did. It did.
Magically.
And speaking of doing your best, although what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, although I'm sick and coughing, and again, I apologize because they didn't hear that part either.
Oh, yes, it's all right. But you're on the mend, and there's no, we're not. There's none of that stuff that we're not talking about on this.
Yeah, sinuses.
Yes.
I think.
There you
Pretty
go.
sure it's sinuses.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I wanted
Steve WebMD'd me.
There you go.
Oh, I WebMD'd you. Yes.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pose a question to you guys because I've been thinking about this after a conversation with a few different people. So I'm curious if you guys find yourself doing this comparison thing. For my age, I should be here. For the amount of time I've been streaming, I should be here. Well, my friends who haven't been as long have this amount of viewers, or my friends who are younger than me have this degree, or well, they, any kind like comparison that ends up making you feel bad about yourself, ends up taking a hit to your self-esteem. Like, do you guys do that?
I think we've all done it at one point in our lives.
I was really, really bad with it in regards to streaming up until our last podcast. And with all the stuff that you guys told me with intrusive thoughts and all that stuff, I've gotten better. Like I don't do it as much. I mean, now and then I have a little bit of a slip and I go back to that thinking, but then I just try and remind myself, remember what Stephen Cat said, and
That's right.
try
Listen
to
to
get
mom and
myself
dad.
back on track, but it's getting better. It's slow, but like you said, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. It's, little steps, progression over time.
Yeah,
It's not immediate.
yeah, absolutely. It takes a while to retrain your mind. We are,
Oh yeah.
by definition, human beings tend to be very negative creatures, and we do that because we are always on the lookout for what could harm us, right? And when we see somebody doing better than us, we're kind of wondering what it is we're doing wrong without realizing they're on their path and we're on ours. There was to give you an example, I was thinking about that not that long ago. I mean, I have friends of mine who are young enough that are still in college. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't go to college. And I wonder what my life would be like if I did. Like actually going through the whole college experience, not just a semester or something like that. And I'm like, well, I may have met somebody, but it probably would have just been awful because I hate school. So, and I'm not saying that education is bad. I'm 100% all for education. It's just me and school don't get along. I'm not saying that people should quit school. No. Stay in school, kids.
You're proving the point, right? Like, don't compare yourself to me because this is me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not the right thing. Doesn't mean it isn't for you. And yet we do that all the time with everything, right?
I'd probably fail anyway. I'd be tripping over all the attractive people. I'd be like, okay, and this one to my dorm room, and this one to my dorm room.
You'd never get any study time in.
I'd be studying, just not the course content.
But this is exactly my point. I think, I find it fascinating that we do this all the time. And everybody, you're right, everybody does it. I mean, I know people who have master's degrees and they still compare themselves to somebody else who has a master's degree because maybe their job pays them $10,000 more a year or something, or maybe has a little more prestige or something in their opinion. Doesn't necessarily make it so, but they still do that comparison no matter how much money they make or how much education they have. And when I was thinking about this and the conversations I've been having, I thought, this is the most destructive thing that we do to ourselves. And we would never do that to somebody else. So again, well, we shouldn't do it to others, but we wouldn't do it to somebody else we care about.
That's true.
I mean, you wouldn't go to a friend and be like, if only you were more like this other friend of ours. You would never say that to somebody.
A decent human being would not. I agree with you.
At least not somebody you care about. You might say that to somebody you don't care about to try to make them feel bad, but
no, but people do it all the time, though. It's kind of like think of like in a job situation, right, where you're kind of like, maybe you're really having a bad day and you're not doing that great of a job, and someone goes, "Man, I really wish your predecessor was here because that person was great and got things done."
And here's what I was realizing. Actually, just last night I was thinking about this, and I thought, when we judge ourselves and compare ourselves to others, and that critical voice that we hear and constantly are listening to, when we do that, it's really easy and natural and normal for us to want to do that to others. And I thought, well, if that's the case, then maybe if we stopped judging ourselves, we would stop judging others. And I thought, we really can't stop judging others, which we won't admit to doing, right? But we do it. We'll say, oh, I'm non-judgmental, but as long as you're judging yourself, you are going to judge others.
There's a healthy way to do that, though. There's a healthy way to judge yourself, and then there's a healthy way, and then an unhealthy way.
I don't know that a healthy way to judge. I mean, I think it's healthy to have goals, and I think it's healthy to want to improve on things, but judging comes with a certain amount of, what's the word I'm looking for?
I think what Steve meant was more of self-critique.
There you go.
But right. I mean, I think judging.
Yeah.
I think reflecting.
But to specify.
Well, I think there's a different for me. There's a difference between saying, you're lazy and you should be doing XYZ, and going, you're not happy when you don't do X, Y, and Z. I wonder if maybe if you did that, you would feel better. Like there's a difference between exploring and questioning things and judging ourselves. I guess for me, the judging piece becomes that negative, self-deprecating.
It depends on how you do it. That's how I look at it. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. Yeah, that's not my place. I just feel that, okay, if I'm judging myself, I'm judging either what it is I'm going through, or what it is I need to be doing and I'm not doing, or how I'm currently doing something. That's still a judgment, okay? Because you're making a judgment call. And you're saying, look, okay, like, okay, my apartment's a mess right now, okay? And I'm judging myself because I let it get that way. Now, I also have this knowing that also gives me the motivation to then start cleaning it up.
Mm. Then we get into the definitions, because
Yeah, I was gonna say
motivation and
I know what Steve's saying, but personally, I would call that a self-critique. I wouldn't necessarily say it's judging. It's more of like self-critique.
Somebody Google the definition of judging.
Do I look like I work here?
Oh, I just don't have enough computers. Let's see. Because I think, words are very powerful.
True. Especially when they're negative. Because it's far harder. I think it was, I can't remember if it was you or Steve last time that said it takes like such and such amount of time to break a negative thought than it does, or to replace a negative thought as it does a positive one or something.
Oh, right. It takes 90 days to form a habit and 3 days to break it. Definition of...
Okay,
who can get it faster? It's a race.
According to Google, judgment is the ability to make. So, okay, by this I would actually agree with what Steve's saying. The ability to make considered decisions or come to a sensible conclusion. Okay, that makes judgment sound great.
Right?
Right. So, I mean, there's so many different, but being judgmental towards
well, I was gonna say, the second one, a misfortune or calamity viewed as divine punishment.
Oh, all right, you're getting into religion.
Right. That's interesting, though. That's interesting.
But it's an opinion. Either way, judgment is an opinion or conclusion. So you're forming an opinion, right? So my opinion of my situation is that this needs to end, okay? Because I don't want to live like a slob. I freely admit I am one, but I don't need to live like one. Get that done, and then I'll feel better because I've gotten something done, and I don't come home every day and be like, damn it.
Right. So in this definition of judgment, there is no value put on it. There's no good or bad. Mm-hmm. It's an observation of forming an opinion. That's, in my opinion, that's very different from what we typically think of when we think of judgment.
Well, when we think of a judgmental person, we tend to think of that person as a very opinionated person, and they're doing it to put themselves up here, right, and trying to make you down here, even though they're really the ones down here. So that's really the thing. When
little butthead.
I beg your pardon.
My grandmother dropped one of her aspirins on the floor, and my cat just brought it into the room to me.
You should say thank you. Maybe he's trying to tell you should take it. Anyway, I just feel...
I took it. He's looking at me like, Mom, why'd you do that?
So yeah, when we're judgmental towards others, it's usually in an attempt to make ourselves feel better, and we are comparing ourselves because a lot of people, and I freely admit that I do this in other ways, but it's the grass is greener on the other side condition, right? We look at our lives and we're like, oh my God, this is horrible. We look at someone else like, wow, their life is great. Thing is, we really don't know how great it is.
Exactly.
No,
know,
it could just be a mask on their part, and really behind the scenes,
yeah,
And
miserable.
and unfortunately, I don't think we rarely take the opportunity to really investigate those things. We just make a bunch of assumptions, which usually aren't accurate. I mean, we can look at somebody from the outside and think, oh, well, that looks good, and then you hear their story and you're like, dang, I would never want to be in their shoes.
yeah. Usually, if the grass is greener on the other side, it's because there's copious amount of fertilizer that's been applied.
Right. So no matter how you look at it, it's just not productive. It's not productive in how we are with others. It's not productive in how we are with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't serve a, it doesn't serve the purpose if we're trying to better ourselves and work on our self-esteem and work on being kinder. I think empathy is a better thing to try to work towards than comparing ourselves or judging others or judging ourselves.
I think
And again, I do
compassion.
stand by, I think if we are being critical, maybe critical is a better word than judging. If we're being critical of ourselves, it's really hard not to do that of others, because it's kind of like you were saying, Steve, it's in our nature to want to feel better. And the only way to do that is to make others feel worse, right? Step up on others.
And that's so not true. That's not the way to do it. I
Right.
mean,
It's
I take great pleasure in helping others. Even when I see them going through the hard time, and I'll do a reading for them, and then they're bursting out into tears, and which has happened, whatever. But by the end, you can see the change, and knowing that it's really like I don't really take the credit for that. I give that all to the powers that be, but knowing that I had a part in it
So
is
why is
amazing.
it that we don't do the comparison on a good note? Like, why do we not look at the positive things like that? Like, that's a perfect example that you're wanting to help others feel better, get through their grief, to answer some questions or whatever. But we don't look at it and go, well, what does Steve need? What does he need to help get through this? Like, we typically
because we don't
don't
let
do that.
because we don't actually let ourselves be available for that, and I am 1000% guilty of that. Okay, I freely admit it. My friends tell me, we come to you with all our stuff, but you rarely come to us with anything. And I'm like, I got it. You know, if I'm having a problem, there's like maybe one or two people that I talk to, and I take their opinions, and then I kind of tear them apart, and I find whatever in the middle, and that's probably the way I need to go. But for the most part, I've been through a lot in my life, and I'm not saying that to evoke sympathy or anything like that, but I've been through a lot in my life where I've had to learn things, and a lot of it the hard way, that I can be like, okay, look, this is my situation. This is probably what I need to do. I'll get a couple of opinions, and then I'll move, whatever's going to happen at that point, out of my hands. I don't feel the need to put that burden on someone else to figure out my problems. At the same time, they get mad because they feel that's what they're doing to me, and I'm like, you're not burdening me. This is what I do.
So this all kind of comes back to the boundaries issue then again, right? It's like you're confident enough in your ability to sort through stuff so it's not an issue for you, whereas others, if they're imposing what they think and feel onto you, that's kind of a boundary. You're like, I don't have that issue, so it's not the same for me as it is you. Like
Right,
it
but I
becomes
don't,
this big circle.
and they, some, like, I've actually had a friend that I've been friends with for 8, 9 years, and like, we've been friends for 8, 9 years, and you know almost everything about me, and I'm like, yeah. Then he goes, hardly know much about you. I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, the stuff that you've gone through, what has been going on in your life? Do you need help? What can we do for you? I'm like, you're doing it. We're hanging out. I just want your company. And that's unfortunately very hard for some people to accept. They're putting a value, almost like a monetary value, of what they perceive that I've done for them. And they feel they have to do something that's equal, but you're comparing apples and oranges. right? This is something that
Yeah.
I'd like to think that I'm very good at, trying to help others and being able to help them sort through their problems and giving them spiritual advice and guidance, giving them messages from the beyond. But I mean, there's things that I absolutely suck at. And at that point, I ask for help. You don't want me building anything in your house. You don't want me cooking. If I offer to cook for you, I'm probably going to kill you.
And I think that's a good point to, letting people know. It's like, if you want to compare things, let's compare the positive things. Like, here's my strengths, here's your strengths. This is how they complement each other and how we can help each other. And it's not going to be the same. It's going to be in the ways that we have, like, we all have our own superpower, right? Like, for some, it's they can fix it. For some, it's they're so sexy. For some, it's they're good listeners, or they're good at, I have friends that it's like they can literally make something from nothing. And I go in my kitchen, I'm like, where did that come from? They're like, your kitchen? I'm like, no, it didn't. Or people who can make things from nothing, it's like, wow, where'd you do that? Oh, I just made it from some scraps. So everybody has a different superpower. So again, I mean, I think if we're going to look at why we do comparisons, instead of doing it to make ourselves feel bad, or to try to make ourselves feel better by putting others down and making those kind of comparisons, let's compare the positive things and how we can complement each other by the fact that we do have different strengths.
It shouldn't
But
be a competition. It really doesn't.
exactly. And we don't always have all the information. I think like you, Steve, I've had people say to me, well, what are your, I'm like, what do you mean, what are my issues? It's like, I'm dealing with my issues. Or people say, how do you, this is a common one for me. But again, based on assumptions and people comparing and not having all the information. You're so positive. I'm like, am I?
What?
Am I? I work at that because it's important to me to be positive and to put positive energy out in the world. But am I positive? You don't really know that about me because you're not sitting when I'm sitting there complaining about everything, or you're not sitting there next to me or inside my head as I'm saying all those negative thoughts to myself. So people don't know. They assume those things.
Assuming.
I was gonna say, everybody has a bad day. No one's on top form all the time. Like, we all have days where we struggle. We all have days where we allow those sneaky little intrusive spiders in our head. I'm still working on it. Like, I still have a lot of bad days, constant. But hopefully if I keep at it, it'll get better and I'll have more good days than bad days. I feel like I've improved somewhat because I do feel better than I did a couple weeks ago, but there's always going to be a bad day. Like, it's not going to be perfect and rainbows and sunshine all the time.
Be boring if it was.
And like, as far as like letting people in, like when people say, well, how are you? Do you need anything? I always, like, for me, it's more of a, I don't want to be a burden, period. It boils right down to that.
That's a really common thing. And here's the thing. That's not your choice to make.
Yeah, I know. People have told me that. I have actually been told that. That's not your choice.
It's true. And this is where it gets really, it gets sticky. It's not your choice to make. And who's told you you're a burden? See, that's your negative thoughts.
Yeah, I know, that's the little spider. But
yeah,
like I said, I have bad days.
Oh, it's so common. This is so common. I can't even tell you. There's even people who won't. I mean, I have family members that I know who literally will have said to me, well, I would go get counseling, but I don't feel like I'm bad enough, and there's other people who need it. Again, why would you compare yourself? Your issues, your concerns, your pain, your suffering isn't any less important than somebody else's. And we put degrees on it. Well, I was never abused as a child. Okay, that doesn't mean that your issues are any less important or valid. And those kind of comparisons are like, that breaks my heart, because honestly, everybody could, especially after this last year, everybody could use a little counseling.
Mhm.
We all have those issues, and you can't put degrees to it.
And just
So,
because you haven't been abused as a child doesn't mean you're not being abused as an adult.
right, right. And everybody's definition of abuse is different too. I mean, I've seen people who just, I mean, I've overheard conversations and I'm like, wow, that's really abusive. Doesn't involve a slap across the face or a punch in the nose. It's words.
Well, sometimes you don't even know because
Right.
it's been like mental
Absolutely.
and like gaslighting and stuff, like, and you might not even realize it.
Or it's been normalized.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually had clients, and this is actually really sadly really common with men, my male clients, who will tell me a story, and then when I look at them and say, do you know that that wasn't okay? They're like, what do you mean? Like, it was so normalized that they didn't even see that it was abuse. And I'm talking about like, now I am talking about like physical. Like,
Right.
they just didn't even see it as an issue because it was so normalized to them. So again, you know, if we're comparing people or comparing ourselves to others and we don't know the whole story, you might think, oh, that guy's just an angry, bitter man. Well, he might have a really good reason to be,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but he's probably not talking about it. So instead of comparing ourselves or comparing him to others, maybe having some compassion, maybe even asking, like,
Yeah.
wow,
Stemming
who
olive
hurt
branch.
you? Like, yeah. um I feel like there needs to be more, if we're going to do things like this as far as talk about others or have opinions of others, maybe we need to do a little more investigating. And even with ourselves,
Mhm.
we can sit and continue to judge ourselves and say, oh, but I'm just, you know, I'm not worth it. Nobody wants to listen to me. I don't want to be a burden. um who says you're a burden? You're saying that. Those are your words. I've never said that. I don't think Steve ever has. I bet you none of
No.
your friends have ever used that word and when talking about you.
No.
So that's your word.
Except I'm the exception to that rule, just because I know that a lot of my friends who are dealing with stuff, I would be a burden if I put it on them. I know that for sure.
You know, again, you can't know that if you don't ask them. Because
But
here's
I
the other
know.
thing. But here's the other thing, Steve. If one of your friends came to you and said, or you said, how are you doing? And they said, you know, I'm fine. And you could tell because you can sense it, or you're getting the messages or whatever. If they said, I don't want to be a burden to you, what would your response to them be?
My response to them is that you can't be a burden if this is my job.
But if I'm your friend, is it your job?
It's my job as your friend.
Okay, so is it their job as your friend?
I
No,
know
they
where
have.
she's going with this one.
I like the circular logic, but here you go. I'm going to break your cycle right there. No, because your job as my friend is to hang out with me, keep me company, okay, and support me if and when I need it. At that time, I probably do not need it.
But you just said your friends couldn't handle it if you did need it.
No, yes, that's true. Some of them cannot, but I have others who can.
But
Okay,
you're not, but if you don't give them, again, kind of like if you don't give them the
right.
opportunity, you've got it. I mean, I feel like we need to start, because I do the same thing. I'm just as guilty. I'm talking about myself when I'm just using you as
I
a
know, but I love
tool.
the circular
Um,
logic.
but if we don't allow others to give us their reality, which is, you know, if I need to talk about something or I need to share something and they can't handle it, they need to be able to be adults enough to say, man, it's too much for me right now. As much as I want to be supportive, I just can't, because my mind is over here.
Yeah, and I agree
My
with you. I agree with that. Again,
But
every
I feel a little
situation
butt coming.
every situation is different, and
There's always
the
a butt with
Absolutely.
Steve.
and the other. I'm sorry, what was that, Pulse? I didn't hear
So
what you
there's
said.
always a butt with you.
That's right. All about the butt. Anyway, the whew, and next time on Springer. Um, however, there is um, some people that would have no experience with what I would want to talk about. And at that point, what is the point, right? It's kind of like, Pulse, if you're sick, who do you go to for medical advice? Don't say me.
She doesn't go to anybody.
I don't go to anybody.
Okay, if you're
unless
sick,
unless I'm feeling like I'm near death, and then I go to the ER.
okay, so you go to a doctor, right? And if you're
Yeah.
looking for legal advice, who do you go to for that? Come on, something.
The internet. I'm too broke for legal advice. If I had the money, it would be a lawyer. If I had the money, it would be a lawyer.
Good answer. Okay.
You're batting 1,000 with me.
I know, right? You're fired. Right. So if you need legal advice, you'd go to a lawyer, right? So
Yeah.
you would follow suit with someone. If you're having problem A and it revolves around a particular subject, that the person who is asking you what's going on and talk to me about it has no idea. Really, all you're doing is informing them of what's going on, and you're probably going to make them feel worse. And I've had this happen. That you're going to make them feel worse that they can't do anything for you because they have no experience and they have no knowledge of the situation and how
See,
to
what
handle it.
what I'm hearing is if I don't know and haven't experienced something similar to you, then I can't be of help. But that's
Again,
about wanting advice, right? Or wanting insight. Sometimes the assistance is just listening. Like if I want to complain to you about my menstrual cramps, then no, you don't know what that's about, and you're not going to have any words of wisdom for me, but you can listen.
Yes, of course, absolutely. That's venting. That's not seeking advice. That's venting, and I do that. I do that. I have told friends I just need to let it out. And I've had a couple of friends look at me kind of warily because they know my sense of humor. They're not entirely sure what I'm going to let out. So, but to keep this PG, I will then just unload, and they'll be like, "Feel better?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But at that point, I'm not actually asking them for advice. I'm not asking them how to help solve the problem. Again, I'm not trying to split hairs, but with the way that I'm interpreting with what you're saying, it's comparing apples to oranges.
Well, I think the ultimate point is we don't have to do this journey alone. Whether it's, obviously we have different people who we would go to for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And we have different friends that are at different levels. I mean, friends that I've had for 6 months versus friends I've had for 30 years or whatever. It's not going to be the same relationship.
Pulse hasn't even been around that long.
Right? but then there's I think
how long has it been? It's been
between us it's been about a year. A little over a year.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's that we don't have to do this alone.
Right.
Because left to our own devices, we do that negative thing more. Absolutely. And that's where we start to get into comparing ourselves to others. I should be here. I should be there. I should be further along in my journey. I hate
that word.
Right. I mean,
I hate that should word. Should implies guilt every time you use it.
I heard this thing at a training once. It's a little sidetracked, but it's a really cool thing, and it'll change the way you listen to that word ever again. This guy was doing this training, and he's like, if there's anything I could tell you all, you should never should on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my God, that is brilliant, right? Because that's don't should on yourself.
Absolutely.
All it does is make you feel bad. All it does is like bring in all those negative voices.
Yeah, replace should with could or could have. Because, okay, I could have gone to college. I could have had that experience. Get down.
Right.
Sorry.
Must be the hour for cats being mischievous.
Yeah, well, he knows what he's doing, and he knows he's going to get kicked out again, right? Yeah.
They always know.
With that tone of voice.
They want to be the center of attention. They don't like it that somebody else is getting attention.
Yeah. Well, too bad. Deal with it.
I just like to be buttheads.
Where was I going with this? I now lost my train of thought.
That's all right. It's all right. Coulds instead of. There's different ways.
Could have. Yeah. We could
we
have.
just have to be. I guess I really want people to think about how they talk to themselves.
Oh yes, Chad Helstetter. He's made a really good book on self-talk.
Yeah, it's just it's vital that we reevaluate. Like, you would never talk to another great thing that I encourage people to do is like when you have that self-talk that's like, oh well, I'm not as good as my friends, or I'm not where I should be. Think about a child, and would you ever talk to a child that way? Would you ever talk to, because if you wouldn't, you shouldn't talk to, shouldn't. See, it's so ingrained in us.
You need to avoid.
Right. Avoid that to yourself. Like that whole do unto others, I think we need to apply that to ourselves. Do unto yourself as you do to yourself as you would others. We're so much more compassionate with others than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So just think when you are saying those things or those words are popping in, which for me, and I think most, is daily, like reevaluate that and just go, okay, is that true? There's actually a formula. I'll have to look it up for our next one, of like asking yourself certain questions like, is that true? Where have I heard that or learned that? And then there's another one I don't remember, but just again, challenging those negative thoughts, whether it's comparison, whether it's, I don't want to say judging now, because now I think judging is a good thing. Derogatory, I don't know.
Criticism.
Yeah, are you criticizing?
Harsh criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When those things come in.
Criticism.
Yeah.
Destructive.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of,
I mean, nobody on this planet is perfect except for me. So
I thought Stash was the one that was perfect.
He is every other day when he's not destroying my laundry basket. Right? Yeah, we're talking about you now.
Well, honestly, we're all perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, exactly. We're all perfect for who we need to be. That's
See, I like that you guys said that, because, oh my goodness, it burns my biscuits, as I like to say, because I'm trying not to cuss. So, like, if I'm mad, I'm trying to say like different things, and burns my biscuits is one of my things. But you say the word perfect, and people automatically think you mean without flaws, and it's like no. When I say perfect, I mean perfect, flaws and all.
Okay.
Like.
So you mean you accept it, right?
Yeah.
You accept all of it, the total package.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where I want us to get with ourselves as well as each other. Is I don't have to agree with everything that either of you think or believe or say or do, but
I'll end this podcast right now.
Right? But I can be accepting of it, and
Mm-hmm.
I can share my opinion and all those things. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't tend to do that. We're not as kind and generous, so I think embracing, there's a song, oh my mind, why can't I think of these things? There's a song, I think it's Pink, and isn't it, maybe it's called Perfect.
I think it's actually effing perfect, but
yeah, I think it is. And I remember somebody
kids.
actually said, I need you to listen to this song.
It's a good song though. It's catchy.
It really is. It's a really good song, because it's like, it basically is what we're talking about. It's like, I don't know what you see or what you think or believe, but you're effing perfect the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
Flaws and all.
Oh, and Pulse, if you're trying very hard not to curse, there's a movie you should watch. It's called Johnny Dangerously. It'll teach you alternative words to put in their place.
Nice. You'll have to send that to me in the Discord.
I like burn your biscuits.
Yeah.
I like farting ice holes.
People use grinds my gears way too much. I'm like, I don't want to use that. I want something else. It's like burns my biscuits.
I tell people I get unglued. Get me all sorts of unglued.
So ultimately, I think if we're going to work on ourselves, self-growth, in which, again, I do believe that the more we work on ourselves, the better we're going to be with others. Stop comparing. You're the only you. There isn't anybody else like you, and that's a cool thing. Flaws and all.
World couldn't handle two of me.
Right?
The world can barely handle one.
I know, right? Imagine two of me. The mayhem we could cause. I don't know if I don't know which pronoun I should use at this point. We or I.
Oh.
Actually, neither of us would
Hold
last
my
long.
halo.
Yeah,
I
right.
just now saw what your shirt says.
Oh yeah, I'm about to
Well,
do
hoodie.
unto others as they've done unto me.
All right, so got a little bit of iced tea there.
Yeah, this was last night's bottle of iced tea. Went to the pizza place. Pineapple pizza. Right.
All right, so we're going to stop comparing ourselves to others. We're going to stop comparing
least try
others to
to.
each other, or at least try to. We're going to work on it because
Yes.
we are always
Works
a work
in progress.
Yeah, I actually
It's a
do not
journey.
like the word try. When people tell me they're going to try to do something, I tell them don't bother. And I'm like, why? I said because try just means if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't.
It's
That's
fine.
true.
We're working on it.
If I had a
Exactly.
Yoda voice,
working
I
on
would
it.
use it. What did Yoda say?
Do or do
There
not.
is
There is
no
no
try,
try.
do or
Huh?
do not. Yep.
I'm telling people that you should attempt something, because attempt means you're going to give it a fair and honest. I don't want to use try, but a fair and honest go at it.
See, this is so funny. This is a whole nother podcast, but just saying, like, words are really triggers for people.
Mhm.
I mean, like try. We talked about try. We talked about judgment. Like, there's a whole different perspective of judgment for me now, based on the fact that really it's not a negative thing. It's like somebody gathering information and
Deciding what
creating
to
an
do with it.
opinion.
Mhm.
It's but we live in a culture that has really made it like if you're judging something that it's a negative thing, like we go straight to the negative. So words really, we've got to be careful how we use them,
Mhm.
both our internal voices and our external voices.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is being self-aware, right? Like I know that when I get frustrated, I can get snippy, I can get really sarcastic, and I've even been told standoffish, which I will accept. I haven't seen it, but maybe I have. Like the other day with one of my coworkers, we were talking about I needed to bring down a server, and it was bugging. Like he didn't say anything, but it was bugging me afterwards, like the whole ride home and most of the night. I'm like, probably could have went about that a little bit better. So the next morning I went to his office and I apologized to him. Like I really didn't mean to come off as, you know, a jerk. He goes, no, I don't care about that. He's like, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm like, thank you, I appreciate that. In my mind, I did, so I wanted to apologize.
I think that's a really important thing for us to be aware of too, like you said, because our words aren't the only thing that communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody can be looking at you, like you can sneeze and I could say, God bless you. You can sneeze and I could say, God bless you. You can sneeze and I could say, God bless you. I mean, there's so like intonation or facial expression, all of that stuff adds into it, because I've had full-blown conversations with people that I'm fully aware in their mind they're shooting daggers at me and trying to kill me, but they have a smile on their face and they're telling me all the things they think I want to hear.
Yeah.
So that's another thing,
There's also like within a sentence, there's also emphasizing different words, because the same sentence can sound 100 different ways depending on which word you emphasize.
Right.
It's wording is hard.
It really, but that's why I think it's important that, like Steve was saying, he went back and he owned it, because he may have been saying all the right things. And your intentions can even be, you're not mad at that person, but if you're coming off like an a-hole, you're coming off like that. And it may have nothing to do with that person and more to do with the server that you're trying to fix, or the client that you're trying to deal with, or the phone call you just got off of with your mother or your father or your best friend when you were fighting or whatever. It usually has nothing to do with the other person. So going back and cleaning that up and being like, I was kind of a jerk yesterday, I apologize. That apologies are huge. And I think we really need to spend more time owning our stuff and doing that. There's no shame in it. I mean, I think it's actually a takes a brave soul to do that.
Strength.
It does. It takes strength. And then something I tell my parents a lot that I work with is you're a parent. You're never going to be perfect. So when you make a mistake, it goes a long way with your kid if you own it and apologize.
Mm-hmm.
And then you set the boundary and say, moving forward, though, this is how it's going to be. And there's the boundary. But if you make a mistake, you yell at your kid, you get angry too quick, whatever, you say something mean. I mean, I bet if we did a survey, we could all come up with one or two things that our parents said to us as children that we still to this day remember that left an impact, right?
Yep.
I mean, I can remember clear as day things from when I was 10, 11 years old that a parent said to me that crushed my little spirit as a child. And it obviously was a big impact because I still remember it. So if somebody had come to me though and said, I said this to you or about you yesterday and that was wrong because it's not true. I was angry. It wasn't even about you, blah, 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 blah. Like that would have been huge. So don't be afraid. It takes great strength to own your mistakes. And the healing in that could be so instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have to pay for their therapy for the next 30 years.
Right. Well, on top of it, I mean, a lot of people, and I fall in that category. Sometimes pride and ego gets in our way.
Absolutely.
And I know that from my, oh God, I'm gonna start sounding like an old person. From my younger years, that me apologizing never would have happened. I would have been like, this problem. But it doesn't. It doesn't. Everybody loses at that point because now relationships get eroded. And I have to work with these people, right? And they're great people. And he didn't deserve my answer, in the way I did. And I know why I was getting impatient. I'm not gonna say anything because it won't come out right. But part of it had to do with getting an answer, and the other part of it was having a million other things on my mind that I had to do. Right. And the other part of it is I was just so damn frustrated because this server decided to give me grief. So, and I mean computer server, not like waiter server type thing. But it really bothered me. Like, I know I have things to work on, and I know, and I'm happy with myself that I caught it. I'm even more happy with myself that I was able to apologize. I'm even happier that he was like, I didn't even take it that way.
I want to encourage people too, when you catch yourself doing that to yourself, whether it's beating yourself up or saying those negative thoughts, try apologizing to yourself and being like, no, you know what? That's not true. I do have something to offer. Mm-hmm. And I am worthy and I do deserve this and I am capable. Mm-hmm. Like, apologize to yourself too. We've got to outweigh those scales so that the negative, which we naturally go to, is less than the positive. So anything you can do to outweigh that. And again, and I think I've said this on previous podcasts, even if you don't believe it, still say it to yourself because you will eventually start believing it. Mm-hmm. Cute, smart, and funny.
That's right. I forget which book it was. Anyway, I read that the worst part of your worst day, like, so let's say you wake up and you're automatically having a bad day because of something, right? The worst part of your day is the 10 minutes that you're in the bathroom looking at staring at yourself in the mirror while you're getting ready and having the conversation with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the worst part of your day. It's the worst part of your day. Because at that point you are now beating yourself up. Okay, you're probably annoyed as anything that you're even going through it, which then brings you in that cycle of, as Kat would say, judgment. That why am I even in this? I don't deserve to be in this, and blah 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 blah. Or I'm so much better than this. I shouldn't have to deal with this. And I don't mean that in like, oh, I'm better than somebody else. It just means I'm better than the situation. It's almost like guilting myself that I got myself into the situation somehow.
It's interesting because I think if ever we felt if you ever feel the urge, because we all have this urge, right? When there's certain people that are just pissing us off, or we get frustrated with certain people, or whatever. If you ever have that urge to want to be mean to somebody, think about this.
Bless your heart.
Nobody can be meaner to you than yourself. And that's true for everybody. I think that is 100% just, if you're human, you are the most mean to yourself than anybody could ever be.
Absolutely. We see ourselves a lot of times, even those who come off as trying to be better than everybody else usually sees themselves as worse than everybody else.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that that's hard, like, especially when you're dealing with somebody, like, let's use as a personality type, a really arrogant person, right? You're like, oh, they're just so cocky and arrogant. I can't hardly be in the room with them. That's just a false sense of self, because people who really are confident don't have to be arrogant. But those are people who trigger us, right? But if you take a minute to be compassionate and kind and think, oh, they are so insecure that they are really trying to convince themselves, because it's not convincing me. All I see is a hurt, wounded person who's trying too hard. We are so hard on ourselves. Nobody could ever be harder. So just think about that. And that's true for everybody.
I have found, being an empath, I have found that those who are actually confident in themselves, they have such a serene feeling about them. It's a very warm and comforting feeling. And it's hard to describe what that's about, but when I meet someone who's secure with themselves, who's confident in themselves and what they can do, what it is they bring to the table, even not even bringing to the table, but just in general, it's such a calm, serene feeling. The energy is nice and calm. Versus when you have someone who's trying to be something they're not, their energy is all over the place, and you're kind of like, will you just sit down?
Well, and I think that energy, if you're talking just purely about energy, those are people we want to be around, right?
The calm, serene people, yes.
Right. So that's another signal for us, if we're looking to, change our environment and change, get more positive people around us, or people who are more confident and less negative. And like, how do you feel when you're with these people? You're going to be drawn to somebody who is okay with their faults, which is a part of confidence. Confidence doesn't mean we don't have faults. It means that we're okay with them. But you're going to be, we know, but we're going to be drawn to those people, and you're going to feel like, just like you described, Steve, you're going to feel more relaxed because they're more serene. You're going to feel different. So again, if we can get in touch with our feelings, like, how do you feel when you're with that person? If you start to get anxious every time you think about talking to this person or seeing this person, they're probably not a good fit for you to be around. Doesn't mean they're bad. It just means it's not a good person for you to be around. And maybe it's just in that time, because we go through different phases, right? Where somebody could be really a drain on us. And if you're struggling and they're just taking and taking and taking from you, and you're not getting anything, that's not going to be healthy for you. So it also depends on different times, but you got to do what's good for you.
You have to come first. And, I have to give this advice to somebody else, so I'm not going to put it on the podcast, only because I need this person to figure it out. And if they end up listening to it, I'm going to cheat them. I'm going to cheat them out of a really, really important lesson in their life.
Epiphany?
Yeah, one of those. That's the kind of, when you say that word, it's kind of a word that if you say that out loud, a dog kind of cocks its head at you. Like, huh?
That's one of my favorite words.
But understand that if you're not kind to yourself first, you can't be kind to anybody else. That's really not the message I want to get across. There's another one, but I can't say it because of...
Well, it's interesting because we do hear this. I mean, I've heard it. I actually just heard it the other day. We hear that saying, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
The reverse is true too. Kind people spread kindness.
Yes.
Loving people spread love. You know,
Assholes.
so
Just kidding.
hateful people spread hate. You know, and that usually comes from within. If I hate myself, I'm probably going to ooze that out onto others.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's another thing. If we're paying attention, it's like, what do people say about you? If they say that you're kind and loving, it's like, oh, maybe I am. And you start accepting that. Think about how much more you could put out there, how much more love and kindness you could spread if you start believing that about yourself. Because people already see that.
I was gonna say that's definitely something I need to work on, because a lot of my streamer friends say like how awesome I am, and I'm just like, you're crazy.
Shut up.
Yeah,
So,
like,
I was
I mean,
actually,
but
I witnessed it. I was in your stream and I actually saw people saying that about you. And this is the thing. So let me tell you this. If people are saying, you're awesome, you're great, and you're like, no, I'm not. Oh, so now you're calling me a liar.
Exactly. And I need to work on that, because I don't want people to think that I'm calling them liars. Like, because I know they're not. Like, I know they genuinely mean it, but until I learn to just accept it, it's rough. And I gotta work on that.
And that's that self-talk piece of going, okay, because let me put it to you this way. Could all of us be that wrong?
No.
I mean, so could Steve, myself, all the
other people sarcastic in your stream?
Moi? Never.
Could we all be wrong and really you're the right one and you're the right one and you're a piece of shit and we're all wrong and don't know anything?
But okay, I need to address that. Me, sarcastic. I am a pure, sweet, innocent, and pious little Orthodox Catholic boy. I would never be sarcastic. I would never speak anything but truth.
Exactly.
Okay. But you know, I mean, we all have the same thing, and you know, one of the things that is kind of, it's almost like turning the tables a little bit, because you know, again, using my new job as an example, last week I felt all of a sudden like this wave of sadness just kind of went right over me, and I'm like, what the actual bleep? It rhymes with buck. And I'm like, it took me a little while, but then I remember one of my own defense mechanisms, and it's kind of like, wait a minute. If this doesn't belong to me, I want it to go back to wherever it came from and bring them awareness. Because somebody's broadcasting.
Right.
You know, I've had that happen to me once, and I remember asking you specifically about that when it happened to me, because it hasn't happened since. But it was the weirdest freaking feeling I have ever had. And it was just, I was at work waiting to go home. I was in a great mood, listening to music, watching some videos. And then all of a sudden I just felt this rage for no reason. And I'm like, where is this coming from? It was so shocking.
Yeah. And that is a weird thing to get used to, because I deal with that constantly. And I tend to catch those feelings at the lower level, so it's not the rage, it's the sadness. And yeah, it's like, okay, here we go. What's going? Yeah, it's crazy, but that's a whole nother thing. So
yeah, like I keep this out of my workplace, so like, you know, I don't give people readings at my job. You know, and a lot of people, most people at my job don't even know. They look at me as the, you know, ordinary person. You pee on my bed, we're gonna have issues. But anyway, I'm just, you know, the next average Joe, you know, but when I felt that, I'm like, I used to always try to trace it back to wherever it came from, because I would want to go and be supportive and try to help out, or just tell them, could you knock it off? You know, but I have learned that sometimes by me going to them, even though my intentions are fantastic, my intentions are great, all I want to do is help. Sometimes, and I've learned this in recent years, that I have to wait for them to come to me, because they have to realize that they need help or they want the help. And I can't
you don't
just
want to rob them of the experience.
Right. And I can't just accost them with a reading, you know, and be like, so, yeah, this is what's going on. This is probably what you need to do. And if you could get that done, that'd be fantastic, you know.
Yeah,
Might need you to come in
that is
Sunday
hard
for
to
it.
do.
You know, it's very hard to do, especially when you see a problem. And I'm the kind of person that you hand me a problem, I need to fix it.
Right.
And you can't, I have to learn, and I've been learning that you can't apply that to people because people are not inherently broken.
Well, that and sometimes people are just venting and they don't want you to help fix it.
Exactly.
Right.
That's another thing, yeah. But I mean, people they drop a problem, you know, they drop a bomb in my lap, and I'm like, well, let's go to work, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just best to leave them be and let them come to you. It hurts. For me, it's painful to do that. But sometimes you have to. And I think, you know, even if you're not someone who, let's use the word as in tune, you know, you're not someone who does what I do, right? As far as being a medium, I'm not psychic. But if I'm a medium, you know, being a medium, being, you know, more empathic than maybe other people are, or even focusing on that. You know, sometimes it's just everybody can see when someone else is hurting. There's no missing that. You know, and sometimes it's just you have to tell yourself it's okay. They'll get through it. And if they need you, be there. Like there was a guy who walked into my job earlier in the week, and honestly, I thought he was crying. You know, his eyes were all puffy. You know, and then I actually got up and I followed him to his to his desk, and I said, "You okay, man?" And he just started to talk to me a little bit, and I'm like, "It's gonna be okay. Gonna get through this."
Well, that's the thing I was going to say is I think it's okay sometimes to approach people, but really just to kind of put out there that you're aware, and then they can decide if they want the help or not.
Right. But when I
We
would
need
do it,
to-
it was usually like, "This is what's going on. This is what you need to do it, and then move on to the next."
Well, right. And which is appropriate if someone comes to you and says, "What do you think?" And you say, "Do you want my opinion and advice?" Then it's appropriate to go, "Okay, here's what I would do, A, B, C." But if they're not asking for that, then we need to wait for them to ask. It's hard because not everybody, as we've all said, I think all three of us, we don't always ask for what we want or need. We don't always know what that is either. But putting it out there and saying, well, if you figure out what you need, then let's talk. If you want to talk it through to try and figure it out, let's do that. You know, giving people choices. But yeah, we have to do that for ourselves as well, though. You know, if you're not sure what's going on or how to deal with it, then ask somebody. Be like, hey, I have no idea what's going on or why I'm feeling this way, but I really kind of want to figure it out. So would you help me process this? Ask me some questions or help me. I mean, I don't even know where to start, but then you need to be clear about if they're crossing the boundary and start fixing it and you don't want to be fixed or whatever. Be like, no, I need you to ask me questions. I don't need you to give me answers. I need you to ask me questions or whatever it is for you. Some people do want the answers. Some people want to be told, okay, go do this, and then they'll go do it. So everybody's a little different, but we have to be in tune with ourselves as well. The more in tune we are with ourselves, we will be with others.
Well, I think too, if you know somebody is struggling, you need to exercise some patience because it's not going to be easy communicating with them if they're struggling. And you losing your crap because they're kind of up and down does not help.
Yeah. Well, and even if you don't know they're struggling, you should still be patient because just because you don't know doesn't mean they aren't.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, and I cannot fault any of what you're saying. I can say for myself, though, I do not have the patience of a saint. Patience was one virtue I was not born with. I've got from what but the thing is, oddly enough, people have told me that I've been very patient with them, and I'm like, are you kidding? I'm like, do you know how many times?
That's you self-critiquing.
It is, but the thing is, I'm fully aware of what I've actually been feeling inside. Like I want to shove their head through a wall.
Oh.
You know.
But you
so
don't.
you did exercise patience, right?
Yeah.
I exercise restraint. That's different. No, but and they've told me that, and I'm like, okay, I don't see it. I've had people tell me, no, you're really, really smart, and I tell people, or that I really know what I'm doing. I'm like, don't tell people that. I'm like, why not? I'm like, they might believe you.
See, that's just using humor though for self-deprecation, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, it also
Oh,
comes along. Yeah, absolutely. It's also coming along with sometimes where it's like, if when I say that, it usually means I've got way too much on my plate and I don't want any more.
And
You
you
know,
can say that.
right? I just say don't tell
yeah.
people that because it makes them laugh and then they walk away.
I'm just pointing out that people do use humor.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Self gallows humor, absolutely. Oh my God, I was using that with my boss a week ago. I asked him how much, just out of curiosity, how much weight do you think a network cable can hold? Roughly 170, 175 pounds? She goes, why would you ask that? I said, that's my weight. And she's looking at me. I said, you may or may not find me in the warehouse with one of those wrapped around my neck if things keep going the way they are. She goes, I'm not going to find out then.
I'm guilty of using that kind of humor too, though.
I think everybody is at one point in their life. It's just it's a release. It's a way to just vent, and
Right, right.
it's a very odd but sometimes comforting way just to let somebody know there's a freaking problem here.
It's just I think we just have to be careful because I'm guilty of that too. We just have to be careful that
They don't take us
we don't
seriously.
allow it to mask or discount what really is going on for us. If we really are frustrated or we really are sad or we really are whatever, that we still attend to those feelings too and not just
Well, there's certain words
sweep
I'm
them
not
under
allowed
the
to use
rug.
in the workplace.
Well, right. No, it's not appropriate. And that's so maybe you use humor in the workplace and then you go home and be like, I really need to talk to somebody because that was so freaking frustrating,
And I do.
or whatever. Yeah.
I do.
So,
That is,
friends,
we are way over on our
Yeah, I was
time.
just gonna say, like, I really hate to be a bummer, but I have to go feed my Graham.
yeah,
It's okay.
um, so again, everything, do the best. We're all doing the best we can. So just do the best you can, and hopefully that's
Work
going to
on it.
spill over and work on it, right?
Work,
Do
not
the best you
try.
can and work it.
Uh,
Right. Do.
FYI, Pulse, your grandfather is there, and he's been talking like for like a half an hour.
Oh my.
So, so that I don't
Oh, now
ignore
you
him.
tell her.
Yeah. So that I'm not ignoring him. Keep an eye on her health.
Right.
Okay, I'm being told that something is slipping. Either there's something that's she's not taking, or there's something she's trying to take in place of something else, or something that has to do with medication of sorts.
Okay.
But there's things are off, and I'm going to leave you with that. If you want more, we could talk privately. But
Her one doctor's adjusting something, so that could be
okay,
that could be what it is.
okay. Well, he's been kind of doing this for a half an hour. You need to tell her.
Understandable.
So there you go.
Alrighty.
With that, though, I wish everyone here who is listening a great rest of your day or night, depending on where you are in the world. And we will hopefully see you next weekend.
Leave us questions and comments.
Yeah, give them all to Kat. She knows what she's doing.
I'll take 'em.
Kat's like our in-house expert here.
Yeah.
I
Sort of.
don't know about that, but we love to hear what topics people would like to talk about, or if they have questions, or if they want to expand on any of the topics we have spoken on. So bring it on.
All right, everyone. Again, and thank you so much for listening. We hope you've had as much fun as we have had today. Hopefully, it was a little bit different than our just kind of just speaking at everybody. We're a bit better interaction. But yeah, let us know how you feel about it, and always feel free to contact us. And until then, be safe, be happy, and be kind to yourself.